Hello and welcome to the FEZ show. It is the 25th of May 2020 and boy do we have a chat show today. We will be reviewing the 5th round of the ABB Championship, but to be honest it's going to be about Daniel Abt and the unbelievable stunt that he pulled over the weekend, which has probably put the Race at Home challenge on the map because everyone is talking about it all weekend. Well, probably just the Sunday because that's when we found out this incredible story about Daniel Abt. So joining me to discuss the madness is Edward Hunter and Jack Pickering. Morning, boys.
Good morning.
Morning, Jack. Yeah, what a crazy story.
Boys, I couldn't believe it.
Get your lemon juices ready. It's a juicy show.
Indeed it is. Daniel Abt, boys. So let's explain basically what's happened. So basically, Daniel Abt he basically fielded an illegible drive is probably the correct term. So he basically didn't race in the Race at Home challenge. He basically got a sim racer in, I think it's Lorenz Hoerzing. I probably pronounced that
Lorenz Hoerzing, yeah.
I knew I'd pronounced that incredibly wrong, but I suppose you need to make a rule sometimes. The way you pronounce the name is probably the correct way to pronounce a name. But so he got the sim race obviously then to race instead of him, and it raised suspicion straight away. Like, I was on Stoffel Van Dorn's stream because he's really good at showing just basically what's going on in terms of lap times, especially for the practice, so we can keep everyone on Twitter sort of aware of who's quick and who's not quick, for example. And as soon as Daniel Abt, Jack, set that qualifying time, you must have been delighted because you've picked him for a great weekend. But Stoffel Van Dorn was like, I need to phone Abt. That no way is that him.
Yeah, no. When he set that lap time at the start of qualifying, I thought, oh, okay, this might be good because I'm pretty sure Nichols was saying like, oh, a 1:09.3 is a banging time. So, okay, yeah, it's good. It's going to happen. I was readying the trophy and everything. I mean, yeah, I was ready to like come on here on today and just brag to all of you at how Daniel Abt was magnificent this weekend, and yeah, no, he started. Well, he didn't, but the thing. Okay, so the car that was Daniel Abt started second and went on to finish third, and yeah, no. What I initially understood of it was I thought that someone did the qualifying for him, then he did the race, but no, it was just someone else for the entire thing. But no, it was I was in disbelief about it. I'm not sure if it was the pressure of me saying Daniel Abt's going to have a good weekend that he decided to get a sim racer in to do it. But no, it was very shocking and very surprising on Sunday when this all emerged.
No, it was like I couldn't believe it, but at the same time, like, I went onto his Twitch stream, so there was a lot of debate, Ed, because, people been putting the picture up of him, Mike hidden his face, and people thinking, that's clearly not him. And I saw that while we were watching. I thought, let me go on Daniel Abt's stream and let's just go on it, because obviously he's doing a Twitch stream as well. And I go on to Daniel Abt's Twitch, and who do I see? Who looks like he's in that seat? Microphone in a very similar position. Daniel Abt. So, like, the sim racer Lorenz, he wasn't in the car. Would make sense. He wasn't going to go to Abt's house, and I don't know. I know Germany's lockdown restrictions are sort of, less, but I wouldn't imagine, people coming to people's house. So Abt was there, and he was moving the steering wheel. But so I thought nothing of it. So I thought, well, Abt must be driving. He must be just a Berlin specialist. But what didn't trigger in my brain is that I was just watching Daniel Abt. Why would I be watching Daniel Abt instead of a game capture of the race? That didn't twig in my head when that happened. So thinking back now, for me, when I went on his stream, he's obviously faking it, and that camera could still be him because the way that it was positioned, even on his stream, it would have covered his face. But it would have just been him faking driving effectively, or he was just driving a different race.
Yeah, he went to so much subterfuge to try and fool everyone. And I tried to look for that stream that you mentioned of just him driving, and he's deleted it. And so that seems to be a tacit admission, or this sort of, or he wants to delete the evidence basically so no one can see it. But yeah, you know what? The really sad thing is it's clear that by getting the sim racer in, that he's sort of admitting, look, I'm crap at sim racing, and it's just better if I just get someone who actually knows what they're doing. And which in of itself, if he had just come up and been up front and said, look, I don't want to race and race at home challenge anymore, it's really boring. Basically, sponsors are forcing me to do it. I'd rather Lorenz race because he's a friend of mine and he's really, because they are good friends. That's why he agreed to, do this crazy scheme for him. If they had just been up front and it was clear that it was Lorenz driving and not Daniel Abt, then I don't think there would be a problem or any kind of story at all. But they were dishonest and they lied about it, and that's why Daniel Abt has ended up having to pay 10,000 euros to charity. He got disqualified from the race and all the previous races as well. Lorenz Hoerzing has been disqualified too and banned from the Sim Racers Challenge race. So in a way, Lorenz actually got a raw deal, a worse deal out, because 10,000 euros, that's sort of nothing to Daniel Abt. That's a drop in the ocean, I imagine, even though, obviously all the drivers are taking pay cuts at the moment and we're in a time where not a lot of them have income, so it might hurt more than usual, but still, I don't think it's going to really dent Daniel Abt's wallet that much. And it'd be interesting to see whether he actually comes back now, because is he contracted to by his sponsors, or is he going to sit out and there's just going to be an empty spot on the grid because they can't trust him anymore?
You make a really good point in terms of sponsors, and I'm going to get to that very soon. But honestly, when I saw it, a lot of people on Twitter and Facebook and so forth, quite rightly so, calling him basically like a stooge, like he basically ruined it. And honestly, I was like, in my head, I was like, what a legend. I can't believe that you've actually done this. Like, you've actually made a mockery of this series, of this championship. And I saw the comedy element in it. Like, I can see how this can be quite funny. But the problem is, like, he put himself at risk, even with the, potential comedy element, and that is kind of like a Daniel Abt thing to do. The risk of losing sponsors, the risk of losing his driver, Audi, was all put on the line from this, because, I'm going to Bubba Wallace in NASCAR, basically rage quit in a NASCAR sim race. Just, it didn't go his way, he rage quit. He lost his sponsors from that. So, Daniel Abt easily could have lost his race seat from Audi from doing this. He could have lost sponsors. It could have been a really big deal.
Yeah, definitely. I think over the last few months we've seen some quite controversial moments in sim racing. We had Pagenaud Norris a few weeks ago. Obviously this has happened. One of the NASCAR drivers, I've forgotten his name, but he dropped the N-bomb on a stream or something.
Yeah.
So the thing is, one thing I think is clear is that these drivers, they don't really care about the sim racing. They're just using it to like pass the time until we get back to normal soon. But if they're not going to take it seriously, then they won't take it seriously. I mean, one of the examples last night, the F1 Monaco virtual, the F1 Monaco virtual Grand Prix, that was an absolute train wreck. Apart from George Russell, who just romped away at the front and never saw anyone else ever again. But no, I think these drivers don't care, and I think the whole reason why this whole Abt thing's blown up is because it was a charity race. If it was a bog standard sim race, like, oh okay, yeah, sure, why not, yeah, whatever. But because it was for charity, it kind of it's kind of that little bit worse, and so so that's why there's been this much backlash from it, and then he's had to pay the £10,000 to UNICEF for it.
We're going to make a quick side note, because you mentioned the F1 Virtual GP, and I agree with you that obviously the race being with charity probably elevates this actually being as worse as it is, but I want to bring that in slightly just as a quick off subject, because obviously that race, there was a lot of penalties for drivers. There was no damage. That's what I really want to talk about. There was no damage. And, they did the GP, which is the Veloce one, which is run by John-Eric Verne on the Saturday, which had damage. And they said, man, if we're going to have damage for that race on Sunday, Jack, then the celebrity drivers, they're going to crash out. We're going to crash out. Like it wasn't a great race for Monaco, so they turned the damage off. And to be fair, there was still, even though they were hitting the walls every 2 seconds, there was good racing. Like I was entertained, and obviously Formula E decided not to go to the damage routine, and we had the damage. There was huge crashes, but then they implemented the 80% damage. It's had no effect. It's had absolutely no effect on the ABB Race at Home Challenge because they're still crashing into each other every 2 seconds. So I'm thinking now, from that decision that they did of having no damage at Monaco, could a Formula E maybe stuck at no damage, and maybe we would have had better racing, or do you think it still would have been just as horrible as it has been?
With that, I don't think it worked out for the F1 virtual race. I don't think it will work out for Formula E if they go back to 0 damage. Because the thing is, we had it 25% for the practice race, and then it went up to 80%. And Hong Kong was really clean, and then we went to Leicester and absolute hell broke loose with the turn 1, and then we went back to Monaco, and then we still had turn 1 shenanigans, and then we went to Hong Kong, and we still had turn 1 shenanigans. But Berlin is a track where you don't really have turn 1 shenanigans unless you're marching car at the back of the field. But
it wasn't his fault.
it wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault. I will admit that. But he's the only driver that I remember involved in that accident.
It was Nick De Vries caused it. I watched his stream. Nick De Vries didn't even go for the brakes. He took out Ma. Later, when he was going to be eliminated, he just rammed right into Turvey at the last corner. So I'm more angry at Nick De Vries than Daniel Abt.
To be honest, it just shows that none of the drivers really care about this series. Yes, it's good for charity, but I don't think anyone's been positive towards the race royale format. And the fact that we've been back to all these tracks over and over again, I think it shows that this series has been a little bit of a write-off.
But going back to Abt now, like, did he show Ed that, what Formula E have done by having this 24, the full driver grid, in sense, was probably the wrong thing to do, and having a mix between, but then I suppose I was looking at the F1 virtual race, and they don't have a mix between, sim racers, really, and, they just got key influencers like a Bamiyang, and they had the Despacito guy in there yesterday that sung that song, and there you go, and it was just the F1 drivers. So there wasn't really many like sim racers in that grid, but maybe Formula E could have done something very similar, which they were quite successful in the Vegas E-Race when they had the sim racers race alongside the actual drivers. And when you've got the likes of Verline, Van Dorn, Roland, who we'll get into in a moment, who's getting quicker and quicker, Pascal Verline, Gunther, so them up against sim racers, that might have made a much more entertaining race than what we're having right now, and getting these drivers who are now maybe getting a bit tedious, getting a bit bored of this Race at Home Championship, possibly.
Yeah, I guess Lorenz sort of almost proved your point that you made several. I think you've made it consistently at this point that putting the sim races and the FE drivers together would have made for a more interesting race. And I guess in a way we've seen a fair bit of good racing actually from the sim races rounds, and it almost seems odd that Formula E are promoting the Formula E drivers around where the driving standards are significantly lower. And then the sim races one is just got out of the way earlier, almost in a way. But that's the one where the big prize is at the end. That's the one where the racing is better, frankly, on the most part. And it's interesting. I think if Lorenz hadn't been in the Formula E drivers race in place of Daniel Abt, I think Stoffel Vandoorne would probably have run away with it at the front, and Oliver Earn would not have got the chance to sneak through down them, because it was only because he was doing. I think Remco was reacting to it. He said it was, I thought that was a sim racer's move from Abt, and then it wasn't Abt, and now I know why. And but yeah, so I would love to see it, but I think with the format they've got, it's not like they can halfway through just have half the FE drivers drop out and just put in the sim races now. It would be a bit difficult to do.
Is Abt's career in Formula E over now? He was on the fence. He was on the fence with Audi. And now he's come out, he's cheated. It's not a good look for Audi. And I said, the consequences for, what he's done, we're only 2 days on. It could still be huge. His consequences, and whether or not he does lose sponsors or he does eventually lose his drive with Audi. This could be a good reason for Audi not to re-sign him, because they're effectively going to endorse a cheater in effect. And that's what I mean. Yes, I can see the comedy element of it. I really can. And to be fair, as I said, when I saw it, I went, what a legend, I can't believe you've done that. But at the same time, I'm like, I can't believe the risk that you've taken with your Formula E career by doing that. Because, as I said earlier, we saw it with people, losing sponsors, with rage quitting and so forth. And, he's on the fence about keeping his seat at Audi. We're talking about him as one of the drivers who went into the season most vulnerable for losing his seat. And now he's given Audi a good reason to let him go.
Yeah, I take that point, but the thing, I don't think his Formula E career is over. He's still a decent driver, and the fact that he did this in a sim race, I mean, I don't think it will affect it as much as like what we've seen with things like Carl Larson in NASCAR. I don't think it's going to be to like that extent or anything like that. I think most people will kind of see it in a few months' time as like something funny that happened. I think this is all blown up now, and then probably in about 2 weeks' time we won't even really care about it that much. But yeah, no, I think he can still stay in Formula E. I think it's still going to be fine. And even if he does lose that seat to Audi, I reckon that a lot of teams will look at him as like a possibility to fill one of their seats instead. What else was I going? Oh yeah, I was going to compare it to a couple years ago. There was an incident in Moto2 involving Romano Fenati, where he went alongside. I think he was passing Stefano Manzi in Misano, and he pulled his brake and he pulled Manzi's brake lever whilst going past him, and he got a ban for life, which was then overturned. About 8 months later, he returned to Moto3. I think he had one win last season, and he's now racing for Max Biaggi's team. So I don't think. I think that is severely worse than what Daniel Abt's done. So I think I don't think it's over, and I reckon he will still be in Formula E in one shape or form for the foreseeable future.
But has what Abt done, Ed, has it highlighted just how bad I would say that this Race at Home challenge has been? Because if you're losing interest in the drivers and you've got this race royale format, which, let's face it, hasn't really worked, and I suppose if maybe drivers are thinking, what's the point in me practicing for me going out? Maybe that's what Abt thought. Maybe he thought, what's the point of me putting all this effort in to race 2 laps? And at least if there was no race royale format, he would have raced the whole thing, and maybe that would motivate him. So if there was an error, like, he can still try and race back through and try and get a decent result out of it. But knowing that he could be out after the end of lap 2, if you know you're going to be in that elimination zone at some point during that race after the first 3 or 4 laps, maybe you're thinking, what is the point of me even turning up each week? I might as well just throw a ringer in for a laugh.
Yeah, I don't think that's really an excuse, but yeah, I can see why he might be tempted to feel that way, and that might have influenced his decision. 2 things really come to mind. One is that the organisers of Race at Home Challenge really need to work on their sort of authentication to check that who's actually in there, because it seemed like obvious after qualifying, and then they had the whole sim racers race to really sort the situation out and nip it in the bud, and then they just decided not to do anything until after the actual FE drivers race. So I think they could maybe have reacted a bit quicker, but I guess maybe there wasn't enough suspicion. Maybe people weren't raising their suspicions to them early enough until after the race. It depends, because we only really heard Van Dorn and Vern on stream complaining about it after the race. So I'm sure they were mentioning it on stream a bit earlier. But second thing is, I have a wild conspiracy theory about this, that I feel like maybe Daniel Abt has done this deliberately, not really thinking that he would actually get away with it. Because do you remember in Hong Kong when he was basically blagging after the race? He was bragging about how his stream had more views than the actual Formula E stream on YouTube. And so I almost wonder if he's done this deliberately, knowing he will get caught, knowing it will make a sort of sensationalist story at a time when there's not much else going on, and that it would. I've seen 30 or 40 articles written by different news outlets online all about this, basically regurgitating the same thing. And I wonder if he's done that just to create a little bit of a story, and that he didn't think maybe that he would actually get any kind of punishment for it, and he maybe because he did seem a bit surprised at having to pay, in his statement at least, having to pay the 10,000 euros.
But the thing is, which is hilarious, and someone actually mentioned this to me on Facebook, actually said, I bet Formula E put him up to it. And I was like, imagine that. I don't think that's true in the slightest.
No, I don't think that's the conspiracy theory too far for me. Yeah.
But I don't think that's true. But at the same time, you're right. There's publications who haven't written one article about the Race at Home Challenge, wrote an article about the Race at Home Challenge on Sunday. And as I said at the beginning of the show, the publicity that it got was incredible. So, whether or not someone put him up to do it, Jack, I don't know. But I doubt it. But at the same time, as I said, it just highlights that. And going back to your earlier point, Ed, where, the FE had no idea that the Abt had done that. There was no way to check it. So, in a sense, anyone could have done it. If anyone could have done it at that point. So, let's go back to race 1. He could have had anyone could have had someone racing fake for them. And no one would have known, because if it was race 1, no one knows how good you are. Therefore, if you put someone as a sim racer in race 1, you're winning races. No one's questioning it. You just carry on.
Yeah, no, I think with the publicity that they have got from this, I think they've got way more publicity than they have got over the past 5 weeks. But the thing is, you have to look at this and then also think back to September 2014 when the Formula E Championship first started up. They had the first race in Beijing, and the thing is, most people after that race don't talk about the race; they talk about that Heidfeld-Prost incident, and that's what blew Formula E wide open into not mainstream media, but mainstream media. But yeah, Formula E seems to have a knack of having a controversial thing and then it blowing up. But yeah.
Yeah, but honestly though, Oliver Rowland, obviously coming in, Lorenzi, or I can't even. I'm not even.
Lorenz.
Yeah, basically was fighting with Van Dorn. They went wide at the turn 6 sort of hairpin, and boom, Oliver Rowland comes in, and who has been quick throughout this whole entire E-Race series, Ed, and was able to keep Van Dorn behind. So he did an amazing job to take the victory. And I've been saying, Rowland's been quick. He's been there in the practice times. And he finally got his just deserves.
Yeah, exactly. It was a brilliant performance by Ollie Rowland, and he was there. I think he qualified in the top 3, was there or thereabouts the whole way through, and really picked up the pieces when Lorenz and Van Dorn ended up holding each other up, because, like I said, Lorenz made a sim racer's sort of dive, and it didn't quite work out for him. But yeah, it's almost a shame that Rowland's this great performance, which he's been building up to for a few weeks now, putting all the practice he's been putting in, that this great win has sort of been overshadowed, unfortunately. And but I'm sure Oliver Rowland, he still gets the points, so he doesn't care about what happened behind him. So yeah.
Yeah, and obviously Maxi Gunther, Jack, championship leader, was championship leader, looked like he was dominating the series. And again, Pascal Wehrlein, I don't think got penalised for that move at the sort of the second to last hairpin, where he sort of just came in on the inside and pushed him to the wall. People were expecting him to potentially get a penalty from that, but he looked like he got away with that scot-free, which obviously sent Gunther into a spin, gave Gunther some damage, and Wehrlein picks up a load more points ahead of Gunther to extend his lead now in the championship.
Well, yeah, and I think with the whole Daniel Abt fiasco, I think Pascal got promoted to the podium. But one thing that I did realise was we went 20 minutes into the show without even speaking about the race winner. So good job from everyone there. But yeah, no, I think the Pascal Gunther incident I do think maybe he should have picked up like maybe a couple second penalty or something like that. But at the end of the day, yeah, I think it was it was kind of firm but fair. But it was kind of a bit like when who put Massa in the wall in Santiago? Well, didn't put him into the wall, but in
it wasn't Roland, was it?
In the second last hairpin. But yeah, no, it was it was kind of similar to that incident. But yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember who put Massa.
I'm pretty sure it was Roland. But yeah.
No, not last year. This year.
Oh, oh God, I don't remember.
my brain's gone. I can't remember. But a lot of people have been saying like there should be more penalties, and that's also what's making the racing not as serious as it could be. Ed, is that drivers are doing these banzai moves, hitting a driver into the wall and not getting a penalty for it, and therefore, if that's promoted, then more drivers are going to just do these banzai moves and push them into the wall because they can get away with it.
Yeah, exactly, and especially with the elimination format. Like I said, Nick De Vries knew he was going to be eliminated, so he basically went full speed into Oliver Turvey just to barge him out of the way at the last corner, and that really shouldn't be on. And of course, you can penalise Nick De Vries, but Oliver Turvey's already out because he's been eliminated. So, yeah, you can't really exactly redress the balance. And I guess it's the point of view, they're not going to penalise Nick De Vries for going full speed in someone. How can they penalise Pascal Wehrlein for pushing Gunther into the wall, which is, arguably sort of not quite as severe. Obviously, it affected Gunther's race, but it was sort of a Pascal Wehrlein defending position. I don't think it was clear that, he was just driving straight into the wall. It was just sort of a bit careless from Wehrlein, in my opinion, in terms of, and maybe a bit over-aggressive. It didn't feel like he did that with the intention of taking Gunther out, and be interested to hear what Wehrlein's thoughts on that, if he said them anywhere. But yeah, they were definitely a bit lax with penalties, and perhaps that's by design.
Yeah, and I suppose that, Jack, it just, then that's where the fun comes in, that's where the seriousness goes out of it, and that's where, people don't start taking things as serious as it should be, and the whole thing, the whole standard of this championship just completely drops. And there you go. No wonder why drivers aren't taking it as seriously as they could be if they know they can get away with stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I think as we've said, no one from none of the Formula E drivers are really taking it that seriously. They're just using it as like a filler until we go back to real racing, whenever that may be. But yeah, no, I think most people kind of wrote off the Race Home Challenge very early on, which is a shame, because they're doing it. It's for a good cause, and that's why it's sad that people have written it off. So that is a shame. But yeah, no, the driving standards have been subpar. I think I'm gonna call it.
And I suppose the sim racing community, Ed, are probably saying that, people were loving, probably to get sim racing through, started and really give it that boost in popularity was having these real drivers in it, because you'd watch these real drivers on the weekend and seeing them doing virtual races, you'd hope that would build, sim racing up. But, the community now is asking whether or not actually having real drivers in the sim racing community is actually the best thing to do, because if they're not taking it seriously, because they can get away with stuff that they wouldn't do in real life, for example, then it brings that sim racing community down actually in terms of its quality and what it is about, rather than raising the standards.
Yeah, exactly, and especially in combination with the app story as well, it's stuff like that really damages sim racing. If you remember back to the Vegas E-Race, probably the reason why Formula E stayed away from sim racing for so long was because of the whole fan boost glitch with Olli Pakala and the controversy that caused, which again was a big story at the time because there was so much money on the line. And but yeah, I think going forward it's going to be interesting to see how the sim racing community really reacts, whether they start doing their own events independent of these big official sports like Formula 1, Formula 3, etc.
What was interesting though, obviously it was great that we had Berlin, like obviously a new track, which probably deserved to be talked about more in this show. than it has been because of the events that's happened. But, Formula E have teased another DLC, Jack. And I'm going to go to you, Jack, because Ed's very pessimistic about these types of things. So, they're releasing the track again on Friday. So they made it, we're going to tell you we're racing on Friday. And I'm like, okay, another DLC then, because if because where else would we race? What's the point in telling us on Friday that we're racing at Monaco, Hong Kong, or Electric Docks again? Like, you might as well just tell us now that's what you're going to do. So I think they've fueled themselves that, maybe Studio 397 have actually had a few tracks that they've had to work on over this COVID-19 period.
It's got to be, hasn't it? I can't see us going back to Monaco or Hong Kong or Electric Docks. Yes, but if we do get another track, then that's absolutely fantastic, and then and then after that, there is only one more round left. So if they're going to do another DLC, surely it's going to be another exciting big track. So we'll look forward to that whenever it is, and I'm looking forward to it if it's a new track. If they go back to Hong Kong, Monaco, or just one of the tracks we've done already, just not on.
Yeah, I suppose it highlights that Formula E obviously wasn't taking sim racing as seriously as it was, but at least it's good now that things are starting to be in place and there are more official tracks for people to buy, for people to then go out and race on, and actually you're sort of starting that process of making a Formula E game in the future.
And you have to say full credit to the team at Studio 397 and the sort of RFX2 Formula E team that's been working away on that Berlin track, and if what you say is true, has also been working on another track that's going to apparently release on Friday. But they've done a pretty good job to do it in such a short, tight deadline by the sounds of things, especially with the lockdown too.
What do you think, Ed? Personally, what do you think, Ed? If we're not getting a DLC, where are we racing next week? Why would they hold it?
I don't know. I think they just like to build tension. And also it means that Nikki can just say, "Oh, mystery track" at the end of the broadcast. And
we're going to Rainbow Road, boys.
It's funny because I think in the original R Factor, someone did put Rainbow Road in, but yeah, it's just a mod. But anyway, someone put a Lego city in there too. That would be interesting. Come to think of it, it's still my own project. But anyway.
Never mind. But anyway, boys, I suppose it's better time to sort of wrap this show up now. An amazing story on the weekend, and obviously the fallout of it, really hasn't come out yet. And, if there will be any fallout, we'll probably know fairly soon if Abt starts losing things or if more repercussions are put on him. We probably will find out in a couple of days. We will put in sort of an interview request. We wanted to talk to him anyway, but now I reckon it's going to be much harder to talk to Daniel Abt about, obviously, to actually get hold of him now, simply because of what's happened over the weekend. So hopefully their press officer will be kind to us. So if we can get him on, great. If we can't, we can't, but we'll try. But boys, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Oh, no worries, Jack.
If you're enjoying the content, obviously hit that like button and subscribe button. It makes a great difference to us, and we love it and appreciate it massively. If you want to come chat to us, why not? Why wouldn't you want to come chat to us? Hit that Discord link. Come and chat to us in the Discord link about Formula E, about Abt. It's all blowing up in there at the moment. It's hilarious, the stuff that some people are writing in there. So all good. Come and join us in there. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you very soon. Goodbye.